So let's make sure everything is quiet, everybody. And we're coming up. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. We have got a lot to talk about. A story really that's kind of been percolating under the surface for a little more than a decade now. But, we're just hearing about it right now. And maybe this is a conversation whose time has come. Let's talk about former NBA All Star, someone who has the numbers to be in the NBA Hall of Fame. Well, he's saying that he was not as free as we thought he was, or as many people might think that you are. And so I think that his story is a story that tells a lot of tales, and we got to talk about that here on the Santita Jackson Show. He tweeted "Free Palestine," and he said within 10 minutes he got a call. This happened in 2014, everybody. He got a call from the NBA commissioner and his agents and the people who run his foundation and others, and they told him to take that tweet down. Now, mind you, this was in 2014. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. And I want you to meet me on Blue Sky at santitajackson.bsky.social, santitajackson.bsky.social. And I'm still on X at Santita J, and the Santita Jackson Show, but please go to at Santita J. And of course, I am on the YouTube. That's right, Santita Jackson Show, the Santita Jackson Show. Someone told me that my reply and these and the like features are not working, but just stay with me and keep trying to give me the thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Let's do that. And I want you to please meet me on Facebook, the Santita Jackson and Friends page. The other page, I cannot accept any new friends. But on Santita Jackson and Friends, I can accept friends. So I need you there. Please get on over there, everybody. And let's talk about this story. I've got quite the lineup to talk with us about this. Indeed, we've got attorney Linda Bernard, brilliant lawyer. She's a police commissioner in Detroit, but she's also the first African American to get a master's in law from the UPenn Law School. She's won several cases before the Michigan State Supreme Court. She's also been a manager and an agent in the show business world. So she really does understand contracts. I mean, she wrote one for me. And I tell you, Clarence Chill Hill, the people wanted to know who wrote this. This beast, whoever wrote this. Nobody can do anything to you. She is, oh yeah, Attorney Daryl Jones. She is a lot. And you will hear some of that today. Of course, Attorney Daryl Jones, chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, indeed, one of our foremost voting advocates in the country today, and a former prosecutor and a brilliant lawyer himself. Of course, he is on WOL every Tuesday with attorney Barbara Arnwine at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. But we're going to start with Clarence Chill Hill. Ow. Oh, boy. He writes for what? All City DLLS. He's a Cowboys writer, everybody. Brilliant sports writer of tremendous renown and experience. And he's a Hall of Famer himself. Comes highly recommended. People in Dallas love him, love him, love him. And Clarence Chill Hill is going to help us to understand what we're looking at, because he's one of these persons, of course, that you have profiled, someone whose career with whom or with which you are quite familiar, someone with whom you're quite familiar. He's someone who was known for being very friendly with the fans. And he said, I was at a movie and several people came up to me. It turns out they were Palestinians, and they said, could we sit with you in the theater? He said, sure. And, he said, we talked afterwards and they talked about their cause. He said, I thought that I would do the Christian thing, because when I heard about the really hard times that they were dealing with, I thought I would, express some solidarity just as a Christian. I wanted to do that. And oh my goodness, we had heard about this some, Clarence Chill Hill, in 2014, but it's been revived. He was on a podcast, and maybe because we have so much discussion, we have a discussion about the Palestinian plight, the likes of which we've really not heard in 80 years. Maybe that's what's happened. I don't know. But what do you make of this? Because the NBA has said that didn't happen. We did not call him and tell him to take down that tweet. Clarence Chill Hill Jr.
Well, first of all, there are layers to this. Let's 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 fast. Let's start from where we are now. Dwight Howard is no longer in the NBA. He's starting a podcast. He's trying to get attention for his podcast. Uh, so he didn't talk about this while he was in the NBA. He didn't talk about this from 2014 up until now, and now he's bringing it up. In regards to his podcast, and we all do podcasts, different shows. You want.
Oh, Clarence Chill Hill. You got a little bit of a freeze, but that's okay. We're waiting for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
People want attention now.
Can you hear me?
You froze. We got you. But you were saying that.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. Like I said, it's a bad weather event in Dallas, and they said everything was going to be messed up at some point. You were in Dallas, and we got snow, and we got ice, and they got the Cotton Bowl, and everybody's going crazy. They're not used to
everyone. They got an inch of snow, but that's all right.
Fair. Fair. A couple inches of snow and people go crazy. They don't know how to react. But just again, setting the scene. Dwight Howard has a podcast, and so he brought this up on his podcast. Again, he's not playing now, so I guess he feels freely to talk about things that he didn't feel freely to talk about when he was playing. It's interesting though that the NBA, LeBron James, the NBA has been different than other leagues in a sense that they have been leaders on issues and causes and being able to be out front and freely talk about things. Although we do remember the Kyrie Irving situation when he almost got blackballed for tweeting a movie. He didn't, tweeting out a movie, and that basically got him run out of New York, and he had to basically, people slammed him for that, for tweeting a movie, so to speak, regarding the Black Israelites and all these things that were coming up. And certainly we all know the situation in Palestine now, and it's a hot button topic for sure. And I kind say that I don't know if Dwight Howard was told to shut it down, but I do know we go back to the Jordan. We're old enough to remember the Jordan days. Jordan never did anything politically that would mess up his money. Mm-hmm. Okay. I do believe that there were people in Dwight Howard's camp who told him to not be controversial because they may mess up your foundation, may mess up your money. That's valid. Whether it went all the way up to the commissioner, I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, okay. I mean, because I have to tell you, I wasn't surprised at all by this, particularly because the Palestinian issue is the hot button issue. It is. And, so what do you think, Attorney Bernard?
Well, I think that, as you said, it's an old issue now. It hasn't, been raised now in some time. I think that when you work for an employer and he works for the NBA, your employer can and can, if you will, sanction, if you will, or silence you with respect to your opinion on issues that would damage their brand. And you would know that as well, because as I recall, you were a broadcast journalist yourself with Fox News Network. So you can't just articulate your own personal views.
No, no, I wasn't a journalist. I was a pundit. That'd be different.
No, it was all your opinions. I got that.
Yeah, because
you got a chance to express your opinions.
Yeah.
But he was a member of the NBA, and they have it's a big conglomerate thing. That's a global entity that has public relations people everywhere. And so, I mean, he had to carry the party line, just as football players do today and most professional athletes. Their freedom of speech is compromised while they're, in my opinion anyway, while they're in the league. But Daryl may know more, or Clarence, and it just makes sense to me. You can't tarnish the brand.
But how is standing up for Palestinians tarnishing the brand?
Because the issue of Palestinian rights is extremely controversial. It's like at a period when the issue of Black people's rights was extremely controversial. I mean, it's a controversial issue, particularly now because of the war. We've seen everything that's happened with Israel. And Jewish people do control American media. At least that's my understanding from a financial standpoint. So anything that supports their enemy, even peripherally, is something that they might have an issue with. And so, and the league is headed now and has always been, to my knowledge, for the most part, by a Jewish person. So anything that speaks about rights against the rights of the person in the power base, to me, is something that they might find objectionable.
Attorney Daryl Jones, what do you think about this?
Well, Santita, I applaud Dwight Howard. I applaud Dwight Howard because he could have continued to just remain quiet about it, and we wouldn't have this discussion. But as Brother Hill was saying, that when he was in the league, he was really prohibited from speaking out on it. Otherwise, he was going to receive these financial repercussions. Now he has the time to speak out. He has the opportunity. He has a platform to be able to speak out on these things for the players that are coming in behind him, to try to open it up so that they can have that free dialogue, that freedom of speech. It's not the first time we've seen this happen. We also saw this happen with LeBron James with the shut up and dribble type of comments, trying to shut him up, trying to get him quiet politically, so that only concentrate on your sport, not on the politics and the social occurrences that are happening around the world. We also saw it in the NFL through Colin Kaepernick, right, who paid the ultimate sacrifice for taking the knee, because of the whole Black Voters Matter, the whole Black Lives Matter, all of that movement, and taking that knee, and forever being shunned from the National Football Association, not being able to play. So, it doesn't surprise me that it has happened, but I certainly applaud Dwight Howard for now standing up and raising the issue again so that it can be addressed. Now, how it's ultimately addressed, I don't know. I can't answer that. I agree, really wholeheartedly with Attorney Bernard, because, when you start biting the hand that feeds you, it just stops feeding you. That's all. And so, that's what that focus is right now. So in looking at it all, the question is, does the Players Association now, are they able to somehow put something together to protect the individual workers' right to be able to speak on topics on which they wish to speak? They did a great job with Brittany Griner when she was overseas in Russia, and the WNBA, got behind it all, and the NBA got behind it. They had all the free Brittany, or free Brianna, all the free Brittany information and all that were on the courts. So, when they want to get behind something, it's fantastic. But this, I think it really calls for the players to try to figure out a way to negotiate something so they can have that freedom of speech, so they can have that freedom of expression in their workplace.
One thing to note, that the previous commissioner and the current commissioner, David Stern and Adam Silver, are both Jewish.
That's what I said.
Certainly, Attorney Bernard talked about the media being largely run by Jewish people. It's interesting to note, as we certainly followed Colin Kaepernick, we certainly followed the George Floyd protests, and how active many of the players were during the strikes in Palestine, and the Israel strikes, and what's going on now. Have we seen LeBron James? We've seen any NBA players actually stand up for Palestine?
We've seen Kyrie Irving. And
outside of Kyrie, I know it. I'm just saying, I'm talking about the LeBron James of the world.
Oh, no.
Have we seen them be very public about this issue? And you wonder why is that?
Well, you said Michael Jordan, didn't it? Nobody's bigger than Michael Jordan.
Yeah, but so Michael Jordan he was not political at all. These guys have been political.
That was smart on his part. He said, quote, Democrats and Republicans wear my shoes. That made sense to me.
Yeah.
No sense but you can take a stance for Obama, who was a black man.
Well, but I thought it was interesting. He did that while you had Harvey Gantt, who was running for the U.S. Senate out of North Carolina. And it was particularly offensive and galling because Harvey Gantt, who had been the mayor of, Charlotte? He really had a chance Now, this, that, and the third, I know he didn't want Reverend to come in and campaign for him. In fact, he wanted to distance himself, although it was the registrations for Reverend's campaigns that made his campaign possible. But Reverend would go on with that, and he would just, let people go on and do what they did, because it is what it is. He said, it's not about me. I want us to win. He made that statement in that context. And that was what made people look at Michael Jordan and go, huh. And so I'm just wondering just how free athletes are. Well, Tony Covington has joined us. He has been a professional athlete. He was Division I player at UVA. That's right, go Cavaliers. He's a great motivational speaker and author. And I said, you know what? Hey, I've known any number of professional athletes, Carol Hill. All City DLLS. And of course, brilliant sports writer, attorney Daryl Jones, attorney Linda Bernard. I think many of us are not aware, Clarence, about the politics of sport. Because I've heard, just like in the music business, just like in theater, just like in all businesses, sometimes the best athletes don't get on the field or get on the court because you know what? Oh, wait, this brings this to mind. I hadn't even thought about this. We were sitting at the NBA finals. I think it was in '91. So we were sitting. Our father was courtside, but we were put up in, like on the second level. And when we walked into our seat, the people who were sitting in this particular area, you could see them shifting uncomfortably. No, they weren't mean-spirited. They were just trying to figure out what these Black folks were doing there. So you know how that is when someone just finally musters up the courage to ask you, who are you? So, because we were kind of clear when we walked in there, because the owner of the Bulls gave us these tickets. They said, oh, so you're Reverend Jackson's. Oh, and then they relaxed. Oh, okay. All right. Well, got that. And as I was talking to one guy who is now still a friend of mine, and he said, remember Mark Jackson? Mark Jackson had basically been blackballed in the league, Clarence. Because, Mark Jackson has been very outspoken, very much in many respects, a man's man. And he said, I'm trying to convince my father to pull him onto our team. And my father said he's too much trouble. This was like at the height of his athletic powers. He was catching the devil getting on a team. So, Tony, you tell me about this, because it seems like sports are far more political than many of us really care to think.
Yeah. And you really have to govern what you say, quite honestly. The blackballing, you've seen it happen on numerous occasions. I think back to, I forget it. He changed his name, Muhammad.
No, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. You're talking about.
Yes, him. When one of the most incredible shooters, he was Steph Curry way before Steph Curry. And what he brought to the league from a shooting perspective was incredible. An incredible college player, an incredible NBA player. And when he began to, when he changed his name, practiced his beliefs, and he would,
he sat down for the anthem.
Yeah, he would not salute the anthem, because it wasn't a swipe at America, but it was his religious beliefs. And so, 1 minute you saw this all-star, this incredible player, and then it was like he was whitewashed from the face of the planet. And it was strictly political. The good old boy network does not want to look bad, in front of the masses, and so when it comes to kind of speaking your truth and being who you are, I applaud people like LeBron James who actually, kind of speak their truth, but the stature of LeBron James allows him to be able to do that. You look at a Colin Kaepernick who knelt for, injustice and, police brutality and those things. And he was just vilified for it, and so you look at who you are, so it's political to a certain point, depending upon who you are. LeBron can do that. Jordan could have done it. He chose not to do it, and so I applaud these guys that, feel empowered to be able to do it, because they are few and far in between, because that is just, your average everyday guy can just not do that, quite honestly.
Well, I'm wondering because, because they're not doing what Muhammad Ali did. Muhammad Ali stepped out on something that was extremely popular. What people don't know about that summit that brought Jim Brown and Kareem and Bill Russell, they were going there to convince Muhammad Ali to go to the war. Muhammad Ali then convinced them, no, this is why I'm doing this. And, that's because, the way it's portrayed in the popular narrative, Clarence Chill Hill, is that they were going there to support him. No, they wanted to support their brother, but they felt their brother was wrong. So they were trying to help him to get over to the other side. And he said, no, I'm not moving. And let me tell you why. And so the press conference, no one listens to the press conference, and we just see the photographs now. I'm wondering, what are we teaching our children, Clarence?
Yeah, I mean, if I just want to interject real quickly, this blackballing, we're talking about Jordan, and certainly we, as people that are watchers of sports and watchers of media, and certainly watchers of players' rights, we often wonder what happened to the Jim Browns and the Muhammad Alis and those guys. And I remember the '68 Olympics, and we talk about,
Tommy Smith and John Carlin.
Yes, and who weren't afraid to give up their careers for rights and what was right, and certainly, again, we applaud Jordan and what he's done as far as money he made, but he made a choice, that he was not going to let be political to not only affect his career, but affect his pocketbook. One thing that we forget, and you guys from the Chicago area, remember Craig Hodges?
Oh, wow. Yes.
Craig Hodges was blackballed. Okay. He was black. He was a 3-point shooting champ on those championship teams. When they won the title in 1992, he delivered a letter to Bush demanding action on racism and economic inequality. Okay. He criticized other black athletes for not using their wealth and influence to help poor and the poor and disenfranchised. Maybe he was talking about Michael Jordan. Yeah. His career was lost.
Because he came to push to Reverend for support.
Right. He filed a lawsuit in '96 against the NBA.
Yeah.
But I think you also have to be mindful of the fact that everybody is not willing to be Jesus, to be a sacrificial lamb, and be, put on the cross and crucified. And what you're saying about these gentlemen who felt so strongly about their principles, as our Lord Jesus Christ did, he was willing to give up his life for for our salvation, for what he believed in. That's not true for everybody. And I'm not sure that it's something that we should criticize, just like the man on the subway in New York. I mean, he jumped in to try to help somebody. And then, of course, he's later tarred and feathered and pilloried and tried for murder, for manslaughter.
You mean Daniel Penny who choked?
Yeah. I mean, everybody is not going to be a hero. That's my point.
And
matter of fact, most people are not going to be.
Linda, he choked this man to death.
No. I'm sorry?
He choked.
He killed a man that was very ill, that had all kinds
of and you know what?
It wasn't intentional.
Somebody could have taken a leg. Somebody else could have taken another one. Somebody
could have, would have, should have, but then nobody did anything but him.
They had choked.
He was threatening everybody.
He wasn't. He was unsettling everybody. He didn't physically jump anybody.
He didn't jump them, but he was threatening them. And so he eliminated the threat. But unfortunately, his health, he couldn't take it. But back to the point. in terms
Okay.
of athletics.
I just on the record don't think Daniel Penny was a hero, and the fact that one congressman was trying to give him a congressional gold medal, and he
That was outrageous.
Well, it was outrageous, and you know what? And he was a veteran, so I don't know if he had PTSD or whatever, because there's a lot that's going on with everybody, because they both could have had challenges. But I just had to go on the record to say that, and with all my love to my girl, I love you.
Back at you 2 times.
Yes. Yeah. But go on, girl. Yes. But no, look, on this show, we keep it 100. But what we do is we can agree or disagree. We just have to do it with respect.
Right.
That's all. I did not bring anyone here to, this is a platform. And I'm trying to share a platform because people like you, Clarence Hill, I need to know your opinions matter. Somehow or another, I don't see you enough in enough media spaces. Tony Covington, you need to, I want to see you more in different spaces. You have the experience. Daryl Jones, Attorney Bernard, that's what this is for.
But
so, so that's it.
If I may, Santita, your own family is a representative. Look at all the boards your father was offered to be on, from like 30 American company boards, which would have paid him $1 million a year. And he forwent all of that for his beliefs because of his principles. So no one knows this liturgy, if you want to say, better than you, because you lived it. You guys would have had houses all over the world. Every sheik, every king, every queen courted your father, but he didn't do it.
Yeah, but that was his choice, and that was what Andrew Young's son Bo asked his father, why wouldn't he just take the time to make some money now? And he said, I did with my life what I wanted to do. If you want to go out and make money, Bo, go for it. I bless you. Don't lose your principles along the way, but whatever you want to do with your life is your business. And I'm respecting that. But I also know that we're not in the same position as our oppressors. We're in a different space, and there's some hits that we need to take. And I remember talking with a friend of mine who's now a very prominent person, and she had been hosting an event where one of these young girls who desegregated the schools in the 50s was being honored. And she said, what was heartbreaking to me was that all these years later, I can see her trauma. She said, and I would never put my children through this. Now, my dear friend, Ivy League educated, all of that. And I was like, but she took those hits. So you just supposed to walk, dance into the mansion?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not willing to do anything. And I'm just saying, my father loved Sandy Koufax, the great pitcher. Mm-hmm. And he said one of the things that he loved so much about him, Tony, is that he refused to pitch during Yom Kippur, even though it was the World Series. He said, this is my high holy day as a Jewish person. I don't care what it is. There's some things I'm going to put to the side. And I think, Clarence Hill, you make the point that, he didn't do this. He did do this during his career, but he did pull back when they told him to. They were like, you've made your point. They didn't say you've made your point, but he didn't have the public space in 2014 that he might have in 2024, although Kyrie Irving had some space, but he took a lot of hits too. Tony, what do you make of this? I mean, are you supposed to just shut up or do you decide, I'll talk about this, but I won't talk about that. I'll talk about that, but I won't talk about this. I mean, how do you handle that?
Well, I really think it's very difficult because, as our former great president said, be the change that you want to be, you know what I'm saying, that you want to see, and so as I tell my daughters all the time to use their voice, but, they're not professional athletes, the athletes have the stage, they have the people looking, so their voice can really have greater impact. And it's not that, each person, has to be willing to be the sacrificial lamb. But I think you do have to stand for something sometime, or you can't complain about the change that you're not seeing if you aren't willing to take a stand, to pick a side. But it's challenging when your livelihood is at stake. I mean, how many of us are willing to lose our livelihoods for taking a stand? And so it's a very delicate balance of how to walk it. I won't say that I've always walked the right path, because I always hold to my convictions. I keep it 100 always. I speak my mind, but I also know when I have to walk that political tightrope. Where, hey, I got to make sure that I'm taking care of home, but I still got to be able to voice how I'm really feeling, at my core, because I have to be true to who I am, because, I'm the person that I have to look in the mirror each and every day. And so when I look at the athletes that have the huge platforms, that talk about the frustrations that they feel, that the everyday American feel, even though their experience and their life is different, I always applaud those individuals who will take a stand, and speak from the heart and talk about how they really feel, because although the day-to-day is not the same of the average Joe, I think it's important when they actually say what they feel, because it does impact people that, are not them.
I got a question, and certainly Attorney Bernard and Ms. Jackson, you guys have the experience and the history, and certainly Tony and Daryl. Said a long time ago, why do we look for athletes, entertainers to be our leaders? What is it about our culture, community, that we need them, because of their platform, to speak on issues that most of them are not equipped to speak on?
I don't need them to be our leaders, but I do appreciate them leading.
Okay.
Or being willing to lead.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I had the opportunity, and I realize I've had some extraordinary opportunities. But this is something that struck me. We had not been in our house very long. And when I look back, I can see my parents moved a mighty long way in a short period of time. Relatively short, but that's nothing but God. And my father came home from the office early this day, and he was in my mother's way and all the little ladies who were helping my mother keep the house running. But we had more people in the house than usual. And so my mother finally told my father to go in the living room and sit down. You are in the way. I remember that. I was like seven or so. And my father sat down and he said, "Babies, come here." So it was me, Jesse, Johnny. Yusef was a toddler. And he said, "We're going to have a very important guest tonight. He's going to stay with us this weekend." And he had tears in his eyes. He said, "It's like a dream. I can't believe that I'm getting that this is going to happen for us, everybody." He said, "So I want you to know someone is coming here. He's very important. But I think, but we're going to have to help him because he's blind now. And he's struggling with his health, but he's a great man." And it was Jackie Robinson.
Wow.
And he was about 51 at this time. He died at 53. But looking back, and you can look at photographs of him now, Clarence, he looked like he was a good 40 hard years.
Yeah.
He hadn't yet lost his son, Jackie. But he had paid such a high price. But he knew, like my father knew when he ran for president, if I don't do well, it's going to be a setback for the whole race. And one of the things that I respect and appreciate about our Jewish brothers and sisters is that each one of them feels that way. I mean, in ways great and small. They're always looking to do what we did when we were coming out of slavery and when we were coming through Jim Crow. And really up until freedom came. Really. We were always trying to put our best foot forward and trying to figure out a way for everybody to make it. And I'm not looking for people who are not qualified to really interpret the issues to do that.
Mhm.
But to take a principled stance,
Mhm.
yeah. There's some commercials I'm not going to do. There's some things that I'm not going to do because they're insulting. I mean, I don't want to be used as a symbol that would oppress anyone. Yeah, I think that's fair. Just given a people who are up from slavery, if you will.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
To whom much is given, much is required. You
Yeah.
know, and while we aren't looking for them to be the leaders, people that are willing to stand out there, that have a platform where the masses are listening to what they say. If we're going to send them out, if they're willing to do it, let's send them out and be educated about the topic so that they can speak, you know, from a place of intellect, but then go out and speak it. You know, because as long as they're willing to do it, they go out with the right messaging. Yeah, they have enough platform where enough people are paying attention to affect change. And you know, so that's just my take on it, Brother Hill.
And and quite honestly, I would certainly venture to say that the mass majority of professional athletes and athletes don't pick up that mantle. They don't pick up that responsibility and start pushing in that area. It's a select few that really get out front and do that. And I tell you, whether it's an entertainer or an actor or an athlete, they're very few. Even politicians, and I think Santita would agree with this. There's certain political people that don't want to get in the way of something that looks difficult. They want the easy move. So, there's a select few of those athletes that put themselves in that path. And that's the reason why I was saying I certainly, salute what Dwight Howard is doing and raising the flag. One of the other things that I just wanted to also raise, Santita, is that, while we're looking at the professional athlete, the person who's really studying the professional athlete and all that's happening is the non-professional athlete, those in the college ranks. So they're watching what these are the people they want to be, right? This is what they're aspiring to. So they're looking at what they're doing. If I'm supposed to shut up, okay, then I'm supposed to shut up. It has an effect of going down to them as well, and down to the high schools, I would even argue, as well. So it really is an effect that it has with all of the athletes and how they step out and how they step into their issues if they're willing to take those steps.
But I mean, because Jackie Robinson, my father had become like he was like a child, because Jackie Robinson stood tall, and then on the off season was going and working with the NAACP, and he was someone who was civically minded, but he was an extraordinary man. I mean, this is a man who was court-martialed. I mean, at the most racist base in the United States, because he refused to get to the back of the bus. And this is someone who was ebony hued, beautiful man. And he was just first four-letter man at UCLA. I mean, this guy, he was just extraordinary. But he used all of that, and he lifted our people in the process. So, and a whole lot of people were inspired by that. So, I mean, I don't think that we in particular, because so few of us, relatively speaking, make it out, Clarence. I mean, so many kids are looking at you. You don't even know who's looking at you. So many of our children don't read, can't read. They don't get a chance to do what you do. And you're an inspiration to people we never know, Tony. And so that's why and I realize everyone's got the right to choose, but on one level you have a responsibility to choose a certain path, because our people need so much. Our people, I can't speak to anyone else.
Yeah.
But when I look at the Palestinians, they're all pulling for each other right now, because they know they dare not take a movie role if they can get one, or do something that would set the cause back. We take movie roles that absolutely diminish our people, There were things that we didn't do that. I mean, that was something that Cicely Tyson refused to do.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Cosby, if you look at his body of work, all he ever did was uplift our people. That's all he did. You just say what you want to say. A lot of people are full of a lot of contradictions. That having been said, the Cosby Show, the Bill Cosby Show, Fat Albert, everything he ever did was lift our people. And ultimately, he will be beloved. These people are trying to steal the rights that he still has to his show from him. Michael Jackson, everything he did was lift our people. Just everything he did, including showing us how not to be enslaved. Thank you, Prince. Because they fought to own themselves. Otis Redding fought to own himself. Sam Cooke was killed trying to own himself. He was on his way to New York to take his music back from Alan Klein, his business partner who had stolen it from him. It was not enough for him to sing. And he could out-sing everybody. And they killed him.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody needs to take that hit, but my goodness. So I'm just saying, because it's not just, I mean, you're right, Carol, it's the college athletes, but it's not just the athletes. Everybody's looking. I promise you, Dominique Dawes is the reason we have Simone Biles today. I mean, there's some folks, because she saw her and said, because of her, I can. Coco Gauff says, no, when I saw Serena and Venus, I couldn't wait. I'm a tennis fanatic. It was a long time between Althea Gibson and Serena and Venus. Trust me, I've followed Martina and Chrissy Everett all my life. Mm-hmm. And when I saw these young black girls, and Tiger Woods, and then he became Carbonation. Oh, come on, y'all. Bless his heart. Yeah. That was hurtful to some people who needed him to be a black boy.
Yeah.
They needed him to own up to that, because in America, one drop is it.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to happen with him now? He's a part owner of a league overseas, and you see him trying to. Clarence? I think you made a point that I thought that I think was quite salient. That now he feels he has the freedom, but he's also, because now we're also hearing about a back and forth that he's having with Shaquille O'Neal, right? So do you see that? Do you see this in that basket, Clarence?
Yeah, I do. Just following Dwight's entire career, I certainly see, and certainly just being in these podcast spaces, these social media spaces, and mm-hmm. and certainly you want to make money off your shows, and you want eyeballs, you want clicks and everything else. I think part of it is because they're athletes, whether they were able to take stances, and the NBA has been more free than the NFL. I've really never seen Dwight be that type of person. Mm-hmm. And certainly he's been in a lot of controversial things over the years, personal, professional, everything. And certainly you talked about the things with Shaq and the back and forth with Shaq, and he challenged Shaq to a fight on his show, and now that caused the back and forth and the social media. It makes people go to his show and say, what did he really say? And so I don't know if this is part of that vein. Mm-hmm. I need to see more. I need to see him do more to say that this is really about him, trying to stand up for a cause, or him bringing up something to get clicks and get people to watch.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Linda, I see your hand on your chin.
I think that Dwight Howard has proven to be an enigma in so many ways, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. Just recently, that show that the Monty, what was it called? He was just in that. Remember, it was a play they did one night, only one night in New York, and it was a bunch of guys and all actors, and he was the only athlete. What was it? The Monty is something. I watched Monty? It myself. I'm sorry?
The Full Monty?
The who?
Is it the Full Monty?
The Full Monty, right. even he started that, and then he, because he quit that, and they got a football player in the full Monty. It was entertaining. But I mean, everything he does, from sort of indicating that he's gay, and then now I guess he's engaged to be married to a girl. Which just means that he's keeping his options open. Everything he does. I mean, he seems to have a lot of fun, likes to be controversial, and that's his niche. But when it came time for him to do the full Monty during the full Monty show, I mean, that last rehearsal, he didn't show up that day. He came in, he apologized to everybody and everything for not being, it started it, but then he quit it. So, I didn't know about the podcast. You guys just told me about it, but I think that he's just doing his thing. And, he's not like other people. Probably sexually or any other way, and so he's just doing that. But he's smart, he's very attractive, he has a great personality, it appears. I've never met him, but I know you guys probably have.
I have not.
Oh, okay, then both of us have a treat in store then. So I mean, he's interesting. He's an interesting guy, and a talented man, and a smart man. So, we'll see what happens. But in terms of the media, I mean, these days, the podcasts do allow you to be yourself. That's true, more than, quote, I'm calling it organized media, but I know that's the wrong word. So we'll see. But a lot of people have taken that other route and become enormously successful. The guy, Joe Rogan, and this and that and the other, it's amazing what you can do these days. My position has always been vive la différence. I'm very happy that different people are doing different things using different media outlets.
Okay. I mean, Tony, what do you make of it? I mean, because I think your first job obviously is to produce on the court, on the field. Mm-hmm. But it seems like athletes now have a whole lot of other things to manage, because every athlete and their wife or their spouse has a social media account and following, and it seems like they're all Clarence. I mean, Tony, they're doing the most. I'm like, who has time for all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Clarence hit it on the head. We now live in an age of, it's about the clicks. And the minute people realize how much money they could make when people watch them act a fool on the internet, or have a podcast, then everybody wanted to jump in and try to make that coin, and I think when you're talking about affecting change and having impact on our community, because to your earlier point, the kids are watching. And they do aspire to be an entertainer or be an athlete, the ones that want that for their life. You have to be very careful of why they want that for their life. Is it because they're popular? Is it because of the exposure? Is it because of the money? Or is it because they actually love the craft? And the almighty dollar has changed the game, along with social media. When I look at collegiate sports now, it's no longer an amateur sport. It's no longer about academics. It's about the money. I'm extremely happy for these kids getting NIL. I want them to get the bag, because they should be paid for their name, image, and likeness. But I think to a point, because there's no need for a kid to be driving around school in a Lamborghini. It makes no sense, and so the what they've done with the combination of NIL and the transfer portal, you've created free agency with no laws, unrestricted free agency with no laws, and so I can pay to play. So what you've turned athletes into is mercenaries. That's what you've done. They are hired guns that come in. So what you lose is the camaraderie of the locker room. You lose the rivalries, and what that means, because a kid that has been at a school for one semester, he's not going to know what a rivalry is between Virginia Tech or Michigan, Ohio State, or any great rivalry in the country. That's not what it's about, and so we have transformed something that was absolutely beautiful in amateur sports to a business. You've turned it into a professional entity for people that can't really handle being in a professional entity.
I disagree with you 200%. We
Well,
don't say that about young white girls who are tennis players. As a matter of fact, your father made the point that black people have gone from picking cotton balls to picking brown balls, basketballs and footballs. And they were controlled by the NCAA. Every aspect of they couldn't even get in a seat in an airplane for a 7-foot person. They had to sit and coach because if someone gave them the other seat, it was a violation of the NCAA rules. I think it's absolutely outrageous that coaches could make 15 million or 20 million, whatever it is, a year, and those kids are out there, excuse the expression, busting their ass. Sometimes that's their only chance for a celebrity in life, because very few people, as we both know, make it to the top of the hill. And now they too can be rewarded for the fruits of their labor and for their talent. And that's absolutely appropriate. If I'm a white girl and I'm 15 and I'm Steffi Graf and I can hit a tennis ball, I can make 20 million a year. So why can't a black guy who can do the same damn thing in whatever his sport is?
And that's not what I said. What I said was, I am extremely happy that they're getting it.
Well, I misunderstood.
Yes, you did. You absolutely did 100%. And as a former athlete, I wish I would have gotten the opportunity to get some of that bread. You know what I'm saying? I said, but my thing is they need to know how to handle that responsibility because it's being thrust upon them. And believe it or not, it's not as much the athlete, but it's the parents of the athlete that are driving some of these things, and their kids are being led astray. I'm in the world where I hear the horror stories of what these young men are going through at a young age when it's supposed to be about academics first.
Why isn't it about Steffi Graf then?
But but let me say this, because my father, because you put him in it, he would agree with Tony, because he was an athlete who went to college. He went to a student who went to college, first University of Illinois, and then North Carolina A&T, on an academic and athletic scholarship. And while he did come around to athletes getting paid for their work, for NIL and all of that, he said, but there's something special about the college experience, about the high school experience, about the amateur experience that is being removed from these people. And they're being given all of these toys, and Ashley King said, why shouldn't an athlete drive a Lamborghini at college? Because you shouldn't.
I agree.
But
Steffi Graf can. So can Tiger Woods as a youth. I mean, how dare we limit black kids when white kids are not limited?
No, I'm not trying to follow white kids.
No.
I mean,
we're not saying it's not a black and white issue.
It has been for years in terms of sports. It's the white ball sports, as her father would say, and which were not regulated. Everything else was NCAA regulated. Tennis is not regulated. Golf was not regulated. You could go out and hit that ball as far as you could and make millions as a teenager, male or female.
Well, Tiger Woods is a new.
I'm just talking about the white kids. I mean, that made millions. The white girls. Gerald knows. He probably represents them.
But to be fair, this was not tennis 40 years ago. I mean, when we saw Ralph Sampson, who was a Cavalier, skip high school. Really just go right into the pros. I mean, I guess I'm just saying, I hear you. I hear you, Linda. But I mean, Tony, I think, makes the point that you can't. In life, you cannot miss a step. And there's a crucial bridge. That's one of the gifts of going to college. You need that bridge between being a child and being an adult.
Shirley Temple didn't have it.
Let's
get real here. When you are talented at any age, you make money.
And she had her regrets. We all know that Hollywood is a moral cesspool.
Oh, Lord.
I wouldn't put my children.
Just getting back to the college part though, and attorney, I feel you on the tennis players and the golf players, and they're able, and I don't understand why there is an age limit in the NBA. I don't think it should be an age limit in all that, because they're not age limit in other sports. I hear you just from being Black, being raised, my parents were educators. I know where you're coming from, the importance of the college, the education experience. But we also romanticize it to the point where it's not all that, in a sense, when they're getting exploited. And we're talking about athletes who've been exploited.
Mhm.
And especially the Black athlete has historically been exploited by these universities and these college coaches who are making millions and millions and millions by and have the power. And you talk about the politics and pros, all the politics in college, that they can put you under your thumb and take away your career in a heartbeat, and you got nothing to show for it. And they've made millions keeping Black athletes under their thumb. So I know it's different, and we got to accept the change. The NIL, the money is here. We have to teach them, educate them how to use it and how to manage it. But I don't want to go back the other way, because we got exploited so bad in the old system of the student athlete.
Agreed.
When everybody else was making money.
And you are an injury away from not going to the pros.
Yeah.
I mean, at the prime of your life. I mean, not to mention the fact that, hey, I mean, these people, these entities, these educational entities are making billions.
You deliver championships.
And then who was it? Was it Reggie Bush that lost his Heisman on foolishness?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wait. First of all, he was making hundreds of millions of dollars for USC. Give him his money. I'm with that. I'm with it. But I mean, well, hold on, because I got a time thing here, but we can continue. But I want everyone, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. This is a Santita Jackson show. For those of you who want to listen, you'll have to come to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. But for those of you who can't stay, boom, I love you.
Bye, guys and lady.
Okay,
Lady Santa.
All right, AM 950 Radio. Now, we
love
can
you
continue.
all.
No, we can continue. I had to take a station break. Hush, Linda.
Linda has to go.
There she is. She left. That was not it. Okay, but I mean,
because I had some more fire for her. I was just getting warmed up. I was just getting warmed up.
Come back. But oh no, she's a police commissioner.
Yeah, she had an event
And she did. She had an event. Oh, she did.
But I can tell from your expressions.
But let me hear what you had to say. I want to hear what you had to say to her.
Yeah, so and I think she was totally missing my point. Totally. She started talking about the non-revenue sports, and I was just like, that's not the same conversation. It's not even in the same stratosphere, quite honestly. We're talking about the revenue generating sports and how, the sport to me is being cheapened, and I want those kids to get that money. But I think there needs to be regulation around how it's done, with the combination of NIL and the transfer portal, because if not, what I'm seeing, the common theme happening now, quite honestly, is a kid can play for one team in the fall. He can go transfer to another team in the spring and then go play for another team the following fall, and he's getting paid at each one of these institutions. Now, I ain't mad at his hustle for him getting paid, but is it fair to the teams that he's going to? All right. And so my thing is, if you're going to have the NIL and you're going to have the transfer portal, there needs to be some kind of linkage, whether it's, hey, if you're coming here, you're signing a 2-year contract to at least have you for 2 years, maybe 2 years and an option. If they want to make it like professional sports, then make it contractually like professional sports then, because if not, you're going to get what you're getting now. And if a kid doesn't earn his spot, he immediately transfers. And the days of when you didn't earn your spot, you needed to work harder to come back and win the spot. That taught us how to handle adversity, which is life. Life is going to chin check the heck out of you. And if you don't know how to handle adversity in a sport, you can't just quit life. You can't just quit a job, when your livelihood depends on it, because it ain't going your way. What if any of us would have done that? How would we know how to handle the adversity? How will we know how to handle frustration? And what I think is we're our kids are being set up to fail even more so about handling life and handling adversity, because they will face it, way after they leave collegiate sports. And if they've always quit and always look for the easy and safe route, now they'll never succeed.
I think you make a great point. I do. But look, you have these shows on television where you take amateurs and you take them straight to superstardom. And the Arethas, the Robertas, the Barbara Streisands, they didn't get great going like that. Mm-hmm. Which I think, to your point, mm-hmm. you can't miss steps. But I think the whole society has bent in that direction, and I think that's problematic.
Yeah, can't cheat the process. You cannot cheat the process. You can't.
But that's what's happening, and I think we're suffering for it. I mean, and you see it. I was at a basketball game with my brother Jonathan, and professional game, and there was this big fight on the court. Mm-hmm. And I said, and he leaned over to me. He said, he didn't have a father. I said, how do you know that? He said, because a father's going to check you. Because your father will not let you be this emotional. With all due respect. And he wasn't being sexist. He was just saying, men will tell you, no, take it down now. Hold it. Don't do that. Because men deal with their sons a little bit differently. And there came a point in my life when my father said, your mother can help you into womanhood in a way I can't do that. Mm-hmm. That might not be a popular thing to say, because people think that, all things are equal. All things are equal, but all things are also different. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, that is okay. That's more than okay. And you're seeing a lot of steps are being missed. And so that's why, and even when I see a Dwight Howard, I mean, Clarence, you made some salient points about him going for clicks, because I think that's part of it. Because you have he goes from Palestine to wanting to lay hands, as he said, with LeBron. I'm like, with Shaquille O'Neal. And I'm like, what is that about? I mean, you are a 40-year-old man. He's 39, 40-year-old man. Are you serious right now?
And one thing that, see, I would have more respect for his stance if he had a stance. Mm-hmm. Okay, he, in the commentary, he said, they told me to take it down. What did I do wrong? He didn't defend why he still feels that way. Why is he, tell me why you support Palestine. Mm-hmm. Other than it's the Christian thing to do. Give me a stance. You're really not taking a stance. Mm-mm. And he didn't, just reading all the articles, he didn't take a stance. He just said, I thought it was a Christian. I was a nice guy. I thought it was a Christian thing to do. And they did this to me. What did I do wrong? Well, what side are you on? I mean, we're looking for you to take a side here. If you're taking a side, not just saying that just for clicks. And that's the problem with Dwight, is that, it's hard to take him seriously. If you dig and follow his entire career and who he is and who he's been and how his career's unfolded and the stuff off the court, questions about his sexuality, and you can do what you want. Mm-hmm. Now him being married, he was accused of raping a gay man. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff there if you get into the weeds. Mm-hmm. And then you again, you got this podcast. You didn't really make a stance and really stand up for Palestine in 2014, and you're not really standing up for it now. You're just putting it out there. What did I do wrong? But are you really standing up for Palestine? Mm-hmm.
But what do you all think? I mean, why does that make a difference, Clarence?
Well, because we talk about people taking stances, whether it was a George Floyd, we brought up the Muhammad Ali, we brought people, they have convictions on the causes they're fighting for. Are you fighting for a cause, or are you just questioning why they make you take it? You're not really fighting for a cause. I mean, we respect people who are putting their careers on the line, sacrificing things because they truly believe in a cause. is he's not believing in the cause. He just wants to know, why was I messing with?
Correct. I agree.
Hey, you've opened my eyes. Because it's like, wait a minute, you got to take the 30,000-foot view. Then you need to go to the top of the trees.
Yeah.
Then you need to go on the ground. Then you need to go in the weeds. And so, thank you for that.
Because just followed the NFL and certainly the Colin Kaepernick stuff. One thing I always said is that it's one thing you want people that can speak to the cause. Okay, everybody can. Like Colin Kaepernick can tell you why he had took that stance. He sat up in front of the media every time they asked him to explain why he knelt and what he believed in. Okay.
And then
everybody can't do that, won't do that. They don't have the information to do that. They can't speak to the cause. And so as a media person, we found ourselves asking every player, do you want to kneel? You want to kneel? And they can't enunciate. They can't speak intelligently on the issue to really have a profound opinion. But we threw it, whether it's Dez Bryant or whoever else, we just threw the camera in everybody's face to talk about it. And so you had some crazy comments. Well, I want to lose my family. People that are passionate about it can speak to the cause. And everybody can't speak to the cause.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have some pushback on that side, right? And I'll tell you why. Because you can't speak to the cause doesn't mean you don't believe in the cause. You may not be able to go into all the detail as to all the intricacies of it, but you know that there's something that's there that to you is morally wrong. You can't go through the history of Palestine. You can't go through the history of the Israeli problem. You can't talk about all of Gaza. But you know that there's something there, and you're looking at it and you say, you know what? This is the same thing that happened to my people here in my country. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. I can't give you all the detail, but I know there's something wrong. I don't think that person should be prohibited from speaking his viewpoint because he can't necessarily articulate all the history and everything else that's there, but he does have a basis for a reason for saying it. So I just don't think that we should be limiting in folks from taking positions in that regard. The other concern that I have, particularly when we're talking about the NIL, and I just trying to work it through in my mind, and part of it is that I'm not close enough to the intricacies of the NIL to pull it all together. But my concern is that you're going to see a similarity to what happens with the NBA and the other professional leagues and shutting folks up with regards to these college athletes and they're receiving their NIL. Does the NIL contract say there's certain things that you will not participate in, certain behavior that you will not exhibit? That becomes one of those concerns. And then it really does become the NIL training ground for paying attention to what happens to you when you're in the NBA. Shut up and dribble. One of the things that we do with our organization is we work with the HBCU All-Star basketball game and the athletes. And we talk about the social justice issues and how they are going to encounter them and how they can certainly have their voices and also be athletes and the responsibilities that they have. So I think there's going to be a balance that's going to have to be shown in that regard so that, if they can't feel free to voice their issues because they're concerned about what happens on the economic side of them directly, that there are other avenues that they can use and should be taught to be able to use to still get to that that part of what they believe in without having to completely shut down and not play a role.
Well, what do you say? Ashley says you don't have to believe in a cause to side with Palestine. He took a side with Palestine, and a lot of people are feeling very passionately about Palestine. Let's put it this way, in ways that they did not certainly not in 2014. People didn't have the information, and so what do you think? You know what? Because I have to tell you, and Tony and Daryl, I saw athletes started to wear black arm wristbands when Reverend ran for president in 83, 84. And, we look back on those campaigns as iconic now, but particularly in 83, 84, not that they were both groundbreaking, but in 83, 84, no one had ever done this before, ever. And the folks who stepped out with Reverend took a lot of hits. Because remember, the establishment blacks went with Mondale. And that was a real big thing. And people like Isaiah Thomas wore black wristbands, and their coaches gave them the hardest time. Oh my God. They took hits. I mean, I'm just saying, in that. And I'm saying, what do you do? I mean, because I'm just, even though these athletes, Clarence, they're not leaders. Tony, they're not leaders. Daryl, they're not leaders. But but they do lead. And some girl is looking at everything that Serena does. She's looking at everything that Venus does. I mean, when they were wearing their braids, that meant so much to black girls. While the white people would complain that they're dropping beads, black people were so happy to see them wearing a black hairstyle, and to have an enthusiastic black father and a calm black mother. Just that it's those. I mean, when you see Joe and Katherine Jackson, God rest his soul and bless her soul. And what a thing for them to hold that family together through all. I mean, they produced eight of the biggest superstars that we've seen in the history of show business, and their family is still intact. I didn't say perfect, but they're present. What is the takeaway with this? Because you didn't paint a troubling picture of Dwight Howard, but you certainly made it more nuanced, Clarence Hill, as any great journalist would do. You're like,
No, first of all, and I respect what Daryl said. And I'm just someone as a media person, because we put our microphones in everybody's faces. And as a black person, I want you to be able to, because I know how they're going to take it. I know how it's going to get spun in the media if you don't say something. And so that's what I'm talking about. I want you to be able to speak to. You can support anything, and my thing with Dwight is, yes, he can support it. There's nothing wrong with supporting. But when you have a platform and you choose to have a podcast, you should be able to communicate why you're supporting something. Why the hell do you have a podcast? Why are you on air? Why are you going if you can't explain why you support something? That's what I'm talking about. That's why it's hard to take you seriously. If you have a podcast. Now you bringing this up. What point are you making? What's the overall point you're trying to make? And so that's why you need to be able to say what you believe in. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can, not just, hey, they just did me wrong. What y'all think? That's my issue with that.
Because if somebody calls you to the carpet, you need to be able to really talk about why you're there. You know what I'm saying? And
that's all.
And I think that's all we're saying is that I want you to be knowledgeable about it. If you're going to take the stand, then be able to speak, eloquently about it, or coming from a place of knowledge instead of just like Clarence said, hey, they did me wrong. What y'all think about what they did me? Well, hold up, wait. Let's back up. Are you really talking about the Free Palestine piece,
right?
Or are you talking about why they did you wrong? You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me ask you this: are there different expectations for a black athlete in the political space?
Whew. He better be on his P's and Q's when he gonna jump out there like that, because he's not gonna get as much grace. He is not gonna get much grace, being a black man and get out there and cannot speak intelligently about a topic. Man,
Yeah, that's the world we live in, especially if you're gonna get political, especially if you're gonna speak on police brutality, especially if you're gonna speak on Palestine, because these are hot button topics that people are gonna challenge you on. Not again, you should be able to support whatever you want to support, and I understand that, but when you are in the media, when you put yourself in the media and support that, then people will ask questions, as they should.
Then Muhammad Ali was ready.
Oh
Yes.
my God.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just, you know, and he was ready to lose all of his money.
Yeah. And Colin Kaepernick was ready.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he didn't lose all of his money, but he didn't make the money he could have made.
Right. No, he lost. No, he lost his career.
He lost a lot.
Yeah, he lost his career because he loved to play football.
Yeah,
And
he lost
that was taken away from him. You know, the byproduct of him being able to get, you know, movies and all these other different things, you know, the endorsements that he lost, you know, he was willing to do those things. You know, he was fortunate that he had those, you know, those other things presented himself because he stayed true to his stance, and people wanted to hear more about the depth and understanding of that piece. And he was able to express all of those things. And so people, you know, the people were like, okay, you know what? I think that's a great story and it should be told, you know? And so he was able to get a movie deal from that to be able to go more in depth about why he did what he did. And so, you know, I will always appreciate, you know, what he did and why he did it. And the fact that he could explain why he did it, because that was great sacrifice that happened for that young man.
And they tried to take Colin Kaepernick. I mean, not Colin Kaepernick. They tried to take Kyrie Irving's career, and he's had to rebuild his image since coming to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now he's getting reappreciated for, you know, his basketball ability, which never failed. But people, Kyrie still, you know, people forgot, like, you know, because they were trying to take his career from him. You know,
but how is he doing now? So how is he doing now?
He's doing great. He led the, you know, he led the Mavericks to the finals last year. They almost beat Boston.
Oh yeah.
And we're learning so much about him and his dad and his story with his dad. Now, you know, is you know, it's a great story, you know. And you know, his mother died when he was young, and his dad had to raise him. His dad almost died in the tower 9/11, you know, because dad worked there, you know. So we're learning a lot about him, how he was brought up, his belief system, and again, he's had to remake his image.
Well, he's been a fascinating figure to me because he was raised outside of the United States, and that to me, and Australia is a very interesting place. In terms of their approach to health, their approach to politics, when you're dealing with the Aborigines, he's seen. I don't think the people really understood. They didn't really understand him, but not that they wanted him to, because I think they wanted him to shut up and dribble. You know, I mean, because that is, I mean, because look at Tom. Come on, what is it? Tom. Oh goodness gracious, Tom Brady. You know, remember when he was Trump adjacent, and people left him alone? You remember that, Tony? Clarence, come on now. I mean, no one hears anything about that anymore. About his relationship with Trump and his seeming affection for him, his support. It's like it's a double standard. But then too, you know, he was. I mean, look, I just look at football because I mean, and I'm a fan. You know, I just always wondered how he escaped unscathed. But you know, that's just me. You know, I'm like, no one's touching this guy. I don't know what's up with that. You know, who am I? So where do we go from here? I mean, what do you tell our young people who want to say something? I mean, Clarence, before you go.
I mean, I just think that you always stand up for what you believe in, for sure. You know, understand the power you have, understand the position you have, understand what you have to lose. I mean, I think that it's one thing to do it when you got millions in your pocket, you know, and it's another thing to do it when you're in high school and college, and you know, you can have your future taken away from you, but you need to certainly weigh all issues and the situation. But again, there's nothing wrong with standing up for what you believe in. There's nothing wrong with believing in yourself and standing up for your rights. And, you know, I teach my daughters that, my kids that fight for your own right, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and if you're on the side of right, it's gonna come out as it should come out.
Clarence Hill Jr., All City DLLS,
Yes, man.
brilliant sports writer. Gotta have you back on the show. You know, I'm so glad that you were with us today. Meant so much. So go on and do your thing. Write about somebody.
I appreciate it. I love telling people stories, so that's what I'm in.
Well, you know, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I want you to come back and tell us some more.
All right, no problem, guys. Nice to meet you guys.
Blessings to
You too,
you.
Clarence.
Well, you know what, you guys, before we do go, I mean, you tell me, because you've had quite the experience, Tony. Just because it's only when I've spoken with one of your teammates, and I saw my own brother's experience at UVA, and you know, in Division I football, and it's so political, you know. I mean, that's just how that it is what it is, and just teaching us how to navigate that. I mean, what do you say to young people? I mean, because you've had a life in which you've overcome so much adversity, and so one would not really be able to challenge you if you just said, look, I have gotten here. Let me lock down my spot. I've got to get stabilized. Really, this is my shot to get some comfort. And yet you've continued to reach out to the people who need the most help, which is not the most popular thing to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You've continued to reach out and tell your story, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, tell me, I mean, what do you do? Because I mean, you have one faction who telling you to shut up and play ball, shut up and dribble. You have another faction, you know, some people who will tell you to storm the Bastille, and they have no skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't know all of the. I mean, people would tell my father all these things that, wow, this is what I would do. And I see academics and I see people who really are lone wolves, who are these lone voices in the wilderness, say all these things. But do you know that since my father was 23, he's had a staff that he had to raise money for?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dr. King, you know, after they pushed and pushed and pushed, he did become the executive director of Breadbasket at 24 for $75 a week that he had to raise. And then he brought on 3 staff members, and he had to raise money I mean, and you can, if you are walking around telling everybody that they can kiss your hind parts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it doesn't work that way, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when you're leading people, my father said, you always have to be very, very careful. You know, he said, you can't get so far ahead of your flock that they can't see you. You have to be just out far enough,
Mm-hmm.
but close enough to bring them along. I mean, and so, I mean, you help me to understand. I mean, because I think athletes, you all, particularly as you continue to scale the heights which you have done, it's an incredible opportunity, but it is fraught with a lot of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, so how do you, I mean, tell me, I mean, how do you navigate all of this?
Well, I think for me, it is the lived experience, you know, and I take it as a personal responsibility to go back and think of the younger version of Tony and the mistakes that he made navigating through his life. Mm-hmm. And then the things that I've learned, so that I can then go back and talk to these athletes and say, okay, hey, here's what I've done. Here are the mistakes I made, and being very transparent about the mistakes that I made, you know, and them looking at me and say, okay, this guy has the credibility he's been where I have aspirations of going, either professionally, or athletically. He's been there and done that. He's come back to help assist me because there were things that he did not know, even though he thought he did it the right way. When he went to the University of Virginia, he went to get the degree, to get the good job. I wasn't going to be in the NFL. I happened to have a great collegiate career and got an opportunity to play in the league for 5 years. That first year, it was all rookie. It was, hey, it all looked like it was going to be gravy. After 5 years, the game quit me. But then after it quit me, I said, well, you know what? That wasn't my plan anyway. Hey, that was house money. I got the degree. Now I can, they said the jobs would come. Well, that was the lie that they told me because I hadn't done the internships. I hadn't done the networking. I didn't know that I needed to do those critical things. I did everything that I was told that I was supposed to do, but I hadn't learned those key pieces. And so I kind of was in the wilderness for a little bit trying to figure it out. And then I got into the nonprofit space for over 20 plus years. And I found a niche there because I could change people's lives every day that I went to work. And for me, that's what did it for me. And so it was important to then go back and help these young men understand that, listen, I want to teach you the game, holistically, not just on the field, but also outside the lines. And people tell, we want to tell these kids, create a plan for your life, but then we don't teach them how to create the plan. And so I started working with them to create the plan because my goal for them initially was just, I want you to leave college with a degree in hand. And I want you to with a plan for life. Whether you play sports or not, I need you to have a plan. If you're going to get on the plan on the sports side, if you're fortunate enough to play pro sports, then you also need to have an exit strategy. And so it was very important for me to go back and to pour into them. And so I'm still involved with the university as I go down and talk to the younger underclassmen now. That's what I expressed to them. This is how we did it when I was here. Here's where I have been as a professional. I want to help you be successful, period, point blank. That is what the brotherhood at UVA is about, And so then I wanted to all right, you know what? I'm going to create my own nonprofit that's really going to be focused on life skills development and life planning, and mentorship and mental health, and so that became very important for me because I started to realize as Black men, we do not support each other near enough, but we can't support each other enough if we don't have conversations about what we're struggling with. And so when we start having those kind of conversations, then we can come up with solutions. And so all of that has just been the lived experiences of my life. I stand out front. I believe what I believe. I am true to who I am. If you know me as a friend, you got me for life, period, point blank, and for me, 2025, I've foregone that spirit of fear. And I'm like, everybody that's willing to chase greatness with me, let's go get it. Because we deserve it all.
Well, thank you for that. We needed to hear that. Because I don't know if Dwight Howard's ever been told that. Because you kind of see him almost like a reed in the wind. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you and Clarence in particular peeped. And Linda too. Mm-hmm. Come at it from different directions. And so I want to thank you for that because that helps you to stand on integrity. Because if you don't stand on that, you fall for anything.
That's it.
And you start, you try to become clickbait.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you for being the stand-up guy that you are.
Thank you.
Really. And thank you for having the courage to going, wait a minute. Okay. Now it's time for me to shift into another gear. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate you and I appreciate your platform because it's important. It's important to be able to get messaging out there to the masses and, information that matters though, that's truthful information. It's not just they know if they come to your show, they're going to get factual information. And there's quite honestly, there's not enough vehicles that provide that.
Well, you know, if I can't do that, then I don't need to be here, because we don't need to waste time here.
Mhm.
You know, I want to pour that into the audience
Indeed.
because I respect and love our audience. And Ashley said, I respect uh, Mr. Hill and Mr. Covington. Can't wait for the podcast. The plan. They've already given you a name. Go on, get at it. Seriously,
Love it. Love
get,
it.
get
Love
at
it.
it. Look. Wait a minute. What did Ashley? What Ashley? Oh, well, Ashley said. There it is. He put it right there. So look at it. He said it.
Love it. Love
The plan. So go on, get with it.
it.
I'm gonna connect you and Clarence.
Sounds good. Sounds
Yeah,
good. I'm with
I'm
it.
serious as I can be. Come
I'm
on and
with
get with it, because people need to hear that, and
Yeah.
we need to hear our men who stand up and stand on principle, on the highest of principles. We need that.
Yeah.
So, oh, and he gave you a name. Come on, Ashley gave it to you. It's called the plan. I mean, what you got?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, Santita, I think when you have something to say, you should say it. You should express it. And that's the one thing I love about being a motivational speaker, is that I have something to say, and when I am on a stage, when I'm talking to people, I've been fortunate enough to have an impact, because they know that I'm coming from a place of love, and passion. And I want to see everybody win. And so when I talk about overcoming adversity, when I talk about we all are underdogs, and my story of adversity and blessings, it means something to me and it resonates with people. And so, we were talking about it. What do we tell our kids? I tell my girls to use your voice. As long as you have something to say, then you have to say it.
Tony Covington. I am the underdog, and he is the underdog who is overcome. I love it, and he's an overcomer every day. I love it. Love you. God bless
Love
you.
you too.
New Year.
All right. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Can't wait to have you back. Remember the plan.
Sounds
said
good.
He
Sounds
said
good.
That's
Sounds good.
And that's right. And Andre just said, absolutely. Amen. Come on now. Two have touched and agreed. So there we go.
Sounds good.
Sending you much love.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
God bless you, everybody.